Welcome, listeners. This is Sebastian Nothwell interviewing RK Ashwick. Hello, RK.
Hi.
Now, RK, which of your books are you most excited to talk about today?
Oh, man, at this point in time, I should say The Spirit Well. It is a cozy fantasy romance.
Awesome. So, what drew you to this story in particular?
It's actually the sequel to The Stray Spirit, which came out August of 2022. And so this follows the three main characters, Emery the bard, Aspen the forest spirit, and Kel the magic researcher, as they kind of step into their new roles in life at the end of book one. I don't want to give too many spoilers away because it is very much connected to what happens in book one. But for book one, at least, I got the ideas back in 2019 when I wanted to do NaNoWriMo, but I didn't know what I wanted to write. And so it was very cute. I followed a little middle school, how to figure out what to write workbook. And I wrote down, you just had to write down all the things that you were just generally interested in. And I wrote down bards, possession dynamics, because I had just watched Full Metal Alchemist, and caves. And so Stray Spirit gradually grew out of that.
That sounds like an extremely handy workbook.
Honestly, it was. They knew what they were doing.
Were you able to use a similar exercise to figure out where the story would go with the Spirit Well, or did it just kind of flow naturally once you knew what Stray Spirit was all about?
Flowed pretty naturally just because I had to think about, well, okay, they're kind of in this high society now. I haven't really explored that aspect of society in book one. How would that differ in book two? What main conflict is there? Because we're kind of stepping into a more Regency vibe with the social season, how does that impact Emery and Cal's relationship? How can I really capitalize on that? So yeah, it just kind of all flowed from there. And I would say similar with book three, which I'm writing right now, The Spirit's Curse. It's really like, okay, at the end of book two, where are they? Kind of where does it, with the status of spirits around the whole province now, what makes sense for how does the conflict grow? So that is what I am currently writing.
Do you find you enjoy the more rural adventuring setting of the Spirit Well over the more city urban setting of Stray Spirit, or
Ooh, that's a great question. Stray Spirit kind of goes back and forth. They start in a city that has a festival going on, and there's taverns because, of course, we're starting with Emery as a bard, just trying to make it in the world. And then as we meet Aspen and we go on little adventures, they kind of go back and forth from being in the city, being in the forest, being in the underground caves and the river route. I think it comes down for me what I really enjoy describing. And I really like describing both. I mean, I am obsessed with caves. So I got to describe these underground rivers and these glowworms and sinkholes in Stray Spirit. But then in Spirit Well, I got to describe very pretty cities and gardens and chandeliers and things like that. So they're fun in different ways.
it sounds like a very immersive reading experience, kind of almost cinematic in that way.
Thank you. I hope so.
So, what would you say overall drives your storytelling and motivates you to write?
I would say emotional depth. This is going to sound terrible. If the book doesn't have a scene where a character just breaks down, I have a harder time writing it because I really find that I want to have everything lead up to these really important emotional beats. And if they don't, I really struggle with it.
I mean, you say that sounds bad, but catharsis is such an important aspect of fiction. I feel, I don't know, as a reader, I really enjoy it when I can kind of live through a character emotionally breaking down in a way that kind of validates my own experience.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of that Tumblr joke where it's like, oh, love that man. Would like to see him in a fit of despair.
Yes. God knows I've reblogged that post.
Same. Yeah, that's really the core aspect of my writing, I would say.
It's definitely important to romance as a genre, and I think also I find I tend to enjoy fantasies more when they have that emotional core.
Mhm.
They're kind of built around those emotional plot beats. Do you have a favorite character that you've created?
Oh, you're making me choose between my children.
I know, I'm
Um,
so sorry.
it's a necessary evil sometimes. Oh man, I mean, I love the characters for different reasons. Like for Rival Most Vile, I love Ambrose's introversion because we are so similar in that regard, and I find him very easy to write. Aspen from Stray Spirit and Spirit Well is very different from me, but I also find them very easy to write. And I actually am exploring their POV in Spirit's Curse, and that has been so much fun. So, they're kind of my favorite right now. But, I've also got such a soft spot for Emery and his anxiety and his bardness and Elle, and that she just wants to be left alone and to read sometimes. And I'm like, girl, I get that.
That's a whole mood.
And writing Tom running around in Ravamos Vile, I mean, I don't know, there's so many different fun aspects. But I guess in this moment, I would have to say Aspen.
I am excited to meet Aspen. I am really enjoying Tom right now. I'm in the middle of Arrival Most Vile, and Tom is a delight.
Good.
So you're obviously very well versed in fantasy as a genre. What stories inspire you?
Oh man. As a kid, I was very much into Tamara Pierce and Diana Wynne Jones. I'm sure I was into many more authors. Those are just the two that always kind of pop up in my head when I think about stories that got me excited about fantasy and excited about female main characters and just like magic systems, all sorts of things. Dragons, of course. I feel like nowadays, one big inspiration, of course, was Legends and Lattes for Rival Most Vile, kind of getting a sense of, oh, like you can view fantasy from this very different lens, a more like small town NPC lens almost. And I love that so much. So glad that Legends and Lattes exists. Yeah, beyond that, it's kind of a mix. I would say I really loved last year, I read Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. People still dubbed it a cozy, but I think it's on the darker side cozy, and so that was really nice to see kind of like what the boundaries are for cozy fantasy. I don't normally go in for fae stories, but I really really enjoyed that one. Yeah, it kind of runs the gamut these days, I would say.
It is funny because, like, on the surface, Fae are very cozy, but there is kind of, I feel like, at least in the Western tradition, that, like, dark undercurrent to it.
Hmm.
Like, it's very easy to pull in darkness from that cozy veneer.
Oh yeah, definitely. And Emily Wilde really leans into that where they're definitely, I mean, of course, Fae, I think they're like just chaotic neutral, but these are definitely like evil Fae that she ends up being up against. Very cool aesthetic, very cool rules of the world. I do highly recommend it. I have not yet picked up Map of the Otherlands, which I think is out now, which is a sequel.
Coming back to your own stories for a minute, what is the number one thing you want readers to take away from your books?
Oh, it's a difficult question.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, no, no, it's okay. I would say this is gonna sound weird. Maybe just a general message of comfort. I don't have like a specific message, I don't think, but I would like for my books to be comforting in some kind of way.
I would say you've definitely accomplished that with Arrival in Most Vile.
Oh, thank
It's very nice to chill all these, like, kind of NPC style archetypes
you. Hmm.
while still having some actual stakes, as mild as they might seem on the surface.
Yeah,
They're very important to the characters.
yeah, yeah. They're more emotional stakes than I guess situational stakes. I would say Stray Spirit is a little different. Those are definitely higher stakes, but it's still Spirit Well. I think the stakes are they're a little bit lower, but they're still just as emotionally relevant for the characters.
Yeah. And, like, I don't know, as a reader, I really enjoy emotionally relevant stakes over stakes we're told that are important but never really feel like they are, if that makes sense.
Mm. Yeah, yeah.
Speaking of messages, what are some themes you love to explore or revisit in your writing?
I mean, you'll know from reading Rival Most Style that found family is definitely one of them.
I was getting that vibe, yeah.
Yeah, that's a big one for sure. I would say in Stray Spirit, there's almost a reverse found family where Aspen aligns with the Carrick family, which is just a normal family. And Aspen just goes, I'm a part of this family now. Like, you're mine.
My family now.
So I would say maybe that's a reverse adoption. I would say I keep writing characters that don't want help or don't think they need help, and they actually do. And they kind of have to learn to ask for it.
I do love that archetype.
I have to avoid writing too many characters with that problem, just because it's so juicy. You want to
Yeah.
see them break down. You want to see them accept help from the other characters that you love. I mean, really, with Ambrose, like it gives him an opportunity to be pretty prickly at the beginning, and that reversal is just real nice.
It's been a wonderful journey so far, I have to say.
Good. I'm glad. I'm glad you're enjoying it.
So what drew you to your subgenres?
Legends and Lattes was definitely a big influence just in terms of acknowledging cozy fantasy as a subgenre. I've always loved fantasy, I've always loved romance, but I got kind of tired of the super high stakes, and I think the fantasy genre overall was really leaning towards a lot of dark fantasy. And that generally isn't my vibe. And so, I mean, Legends and Lattes is a big modern cozy, but I would say Diana Wynne Jones, like Howl's Moving Castle, falls into an older cozy. The Hobbit is an older cozy. So that subgenre, maybe without that specific moniker, has been around for a while.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I'm glad that kind of like, not making a resurgence, but it's becoming more well known.
This is going to sound very bitter, but it's nice to no longer be in a room full of Game of Thrones clones.
Yes. Yeah, like I read Game of Thrones, loved Game of Thrones, but I don't think I could read only Game of Thrones because those are really, really intense.
Yeah, it's a lot to do all the time. What advice do you have for aspiring authors?
I would recommend knowing your goals first because there's so much advice out there that kind of assumes certain goal. The advice you'll get if you really want to write 6 books in a year is going to be wildly different than if you're just writing for fun and you want to improve a certain part of your craft. And if you don't remind yourself of your goals, it's very easy to pick up the advice that doesn't align with it and go, oh, well, I should really be doing this when it actually doesn't match with what you want to do. And so it's easy to kind of feel that pressure if you don't constantly kind of like remind yourself of your course, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Like, there's no one size fits all advice that's going to work for everyone at all times. That said, saying that is kind of a one size fits all advice that fits at all times, so who knows?
Maybe that's like the one piece of advice that is one size fits all. It's like the first rule of Fight Club, you don't talk about Fight Club.
Yeah. So if folks want to connect with you or check out more of your writing, where can they find you online?
Yeah, I have a website, rkashwick.com. I am also on Instagram and TikTok as RK Ashwick Books.
Well, thank you so much for coming on, RK. This is great.
Yeah, it was fun.
A wonderful, productive, and informative, inspiring chat.
Yay. And thank you.
Excited to talk with you on more roundtables soon.
Very exciting.
Excellent.